Here we're in Sydney doing our Rooster Talk series. We're talking with Nicole Galloway Warland today from Thor Mining. Nicole has now recently taken on the managing director role. She was previously the exploration manager. So we're going to get a quick update from what's been happening since Coffee with Samso early in the year. So Nicole, far away.
Hi Noel, good to be back. Since we've last spoken, we've had a fairly busy field season, getting ready to start drilling. So exciting times ahead in the next 3 months, focusing on our copper resources and gold and uranium discoveries. So we'll be drilling at our copper project in South Australia, our gold Ragged Range project over in the Pilbara, and then over in the US at our uranium vanadium project. So lots of news flow in the next few months.
Yeah, I mean the copper project in South Australia. I mean, Thor's a really interesting beast in the sense that you've got a lot of different commodities, but they're actually very sort of prospective kind of styles. And as we know in exploration, it's about how lucky you are or how fortunate you are, timing. But I like the copper one in South Australia. Can you just give us a bit more details about what it is, maybe the viewers, what it is and how it's going to go ahead? So
there's essentially Thor have 3 copper projects in South Australia, direct and indirect. So we have the Alfred East project, and adjacent to that is the Alfred West project, and that's owned by Enviro Copper, who Thor has 30% equity in, as well as the Kapunda project, which is also Enviro Copper. So the 3 copper projects, we're essentially looking for large copper oxide shallow mineralisation, which is amenable to in situ recovery.
Okay. And how's the progress? I know last time we sort of touched on the ISR, in situ recovery, and there was a study that was you guys were doing one or in progress. How is that? Is there an update on that? What's happening there?
So we're about to commence drilling to collect more hydrometallurgical analysis. Yep. But our Kapunda project will be moving into what's referred to as a field leach trial. And that's really the final stage of a technical feasibility study. Mm-hmm. And that's obviously being funded by CSIRO. So there's a real push to get this technology up and running with production, hopefully in 2023.
Okay. I guess with copper pricing sort of going north, it's a very fortunate thing for you guys.
Oh, it is. And look, if you put the 3 deposits together, it's over 400,000 tonnes of contained copper.
Okay.
And then that's significant potential to increase that resource.
That's a lot of copper in sort of everyman's language, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there is gold associated with the copper. Certainly at our Alfred East, there's over 70,000 tonnes of gold, which was a bit of a bonus or a credit, if you like. And at Kapunda, there's also gold.
Okay. I know when we were trying to organise ourselves to meet up and do this, you were travelling, you were in Kimberley's, I think, I think you had to go through Northern Territory to come back to Adelaide. Yeah. So obviously you're foot on the ground looking at stuff. So can you give us a update on what's out there, what's happening?
So we were trying to get over to our Pilbara project in WA, Ragged Range. With COVID, the border's been closed, etc. So a few sort of hiccups from that side of things. We had a field team over there last year doing some work, but it was really important to get over there and get familiar with the rocks myself and to design the drilling program. We completed a soil sampling program in April, and we're waiting for those results to come through in the next few weeks, with a drill rig scheduled for June.
Okay.
We just got some government funding with the WA government to co-fund that drilling program, so quite excited about that.
Okay. And the last thing that we mentioned is uranium. Obviously, I left it to the end because uranium's taken a slight. Well, I mean, it's building up momentum for a while, but I think just recently I was watching something, and it was interesting. The narrative, they mentioned the U word, and the feedback was that it felt almost like people were accepting that it is better and all the that the lower carbon footprint and stuff like that. What's your thoughts on that?
I think you're right, particularly over in the US, and that's where our project is, in Utah, Colorado, and the Eurovan Belt. People want a cleaner energy. So nuclear gives us baseload clean energy, and so I think people are now starting to accept it. There's a lot more education around not only uranium mining but also nuclear power. So I think people are sort of starting to be more comfortable with nuclear power.
Yeah, it's interesting because yesterday at the RIU conference I met a fellow sort of guy, investor, and he mentioned that the modular effect, that a lot of companies now looking at them, putting modular submarine size kind of reactors as opposed to the big, reactors that we're used to seeing, right?
Yeah.
So, and that the adoption of that probably is going to be more practical because you have many of this modular everywhere rather than one big monster that feeds.
Oh, for
everywhere.
sure. And so each state could have reactors rather than all being from one.
Yeah. So and I guess the US is forefront, and your projects is in the US.
Yeah.
And I think your project has a bit of a vanadium taste to it as well.
It does. So the Uravan mineral belt is a vanadium uranium belt. Ratio about 5 to 1%, with the vanadium the higher. So in our area, we're looking at uranium around 1.25% and vanadium around 3.5%.
Okay.
So you essentially have a sandstone unit of uranium and vanadium, but also a halo of vanadium. So that's where you get the higher ratio.
So geologically, it's more like it's considered as a roll front kind of style.
It's a sandstone hosted paleochannel roll front. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And as opposed to the calcrete stuff that we were talking about or are they similar in style?
Similar. If you just sort of imagine a braided stream that's been infilled with organic matter, the uranium sort of flows in solution through, and it reacts with this sort of reduced environment and precipitates out. So it's a roll front style, such as Beverley, Honeymoon in South Australia.
Okay.
Very similar, however, it's in a hard sandstone unit.
Okay.
So it's strata bound, it's very consistent along strike, over hundreds of metres to kilometres, and the width of that stream, so up to 20 metres, 50 metres wide.
Okay. And from obviously you're sort of the managing director, and you're actually having to talk technical and talk a capital market. I'm not sure how much you've done, but what is Thor finding out about the commodities? Obviously, you guys, you got the copper, you got the gold, and you got the uranium. So that sort of a timeline could be short term, medium term, long term kind of strategy. So has the capital markets given you guys any indication of what 12 months, 18 months it's like for those commodities?
Look, you're right, we're a very diverse portfolio, but each of those projects, if you like, at a different stage. So as we're progressing the copper projects towards production, we've got the gold Pilbara project coming on as greenfield. So they're all sort of sitting at a different stage so that we can have that continuous pipeline to production. And you're right, different commodities come and go. We've got 2 tungsten projects. They're sort of sitting quietly at the moment while that tungsten price is fairly low. But uranium's very popular, a lot of interest in projects over in the US. So again, that's something that we can promote.
Yeah, I mean, tungsten is sort of one of the suite of favourite commodities. But and I remember looking at your tungsten project, which had some really nice grades. But I'm actually very optimistic about the critical metals. At some point, I think that's going to kick in when this next super cycle moves ahead. I mean, I know we've touched on some of the sort of news flow going forward. What is the news flow for the next sort of 12, 18 months? I know we've got the drilling, but is there a strategy to move projects forward at the step?
Yeah, so drilling over the next 3 months, so a lot of news flow from that, and then the results obviously following on. The copper, we're aggressively progressing that to in situ recovery production. So that will be the biggest, I think, news flow from a corporate perspective. Ragged Range Gold, greenfields, exciting days, but you're never really sure long term. We've got quite a few other targets in that project area to follow up.
Yep.
So that's sort of a little bit of an unseen how that progresses. And then uranium again with the drilling, we're just testing 3 of the prospects. So they'll either be infill to resource, or we'll be looking at some of the other prospects.
Okay. I mean, for the viewers out there, I mean, Thor is, to me, is quite interesting in the sense that you got the copper, which is, if that all pans out well, you could be, a decent size producer to some degree, right?
Exactly.
I don't want to jinx anything, but and the uranium, as we know, the uranium market is very buoyant and optimistic, and a few good hits there, put a few things together, suddenly you're in the US, right? Because obviously...
Well, that's the thing. So the US, they import 95% of their uranium, and they want to now have local source of uranium with the geopolitical situation. So there's a big focus on getting their own uranium supply for their 30% nuclear power. So they're very interested, and there's been a lot of sort of interest over in the US on that project and how we move forward. Yeah,
I mean, of all the commodities that we talk about, I think the fact that you're in the US and it's uranium, it's you got a lot of upside that
definitely.
Once switched on, you just roll,
Yeah.
But I think your ISR is very interesting. If that can come off and all the studies point to the right direction.
Well, it's not new technology. It's been used since the 1960s. Most people are familiar with it in the uranium space. It's new in South Australia, and certainly Australia from the copper gold perspective. But there's 2 operations in Arizona in the US. So it's there. It's not new, but it's something that we will be the leaders, hopefully, in Australia moving it forward.
No, definitely. I was very keen. It's the implementation. I mean, I wrote about this a long time ago, but I think the implementation of this with sort of environmental conscious techniques.
Look, I think you hit the nail on the head, with the environment. It's a low impact. There's no large volumes of earth being moved, no waste dumps, no tailings dams, noise, dust, all of that. So I think it's a much greener, cleaner way to move forward. As big demand in copper, but I think this is the way to move forward.
Yeah. Oh, I think the demand for copper is definitely there. I think it's not going to run away, and the movement in the share price recently, as we've seen, is I mean, not share price, but
the commodity price.
Speaks quite volumes, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, look, Nicole, thanks for the update. I mean, fantastic. We'll see you down in the conference in the booth.
Yes, and we've got a video going helping educate on ISR. So come down
and that'll be on your website.
That's correct.
Yeah. And when I send this out, I'll make sure there's a link there in the blog. But again, thank you, Nicole.
Thank you very much, Noel.
And
stay tuned over the next 3 months.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.